I'm going to use them. Archbishop, thank you very much. I read the paper a week ago, and I'm going to use some of your material and some of my talks back on campus and in the community. It's very, very good. I'll take a different approach. One of the things I like here, Archbishop's calling us to a fundamental renewal of Catholic schools. Half measures won't do. That's music to my ears, because half measures are hard to do. Big ideas are much easier, much more possible, and much needed. Okay? A few things about me. Oh, by the way, someone watching the clock, because I think we're supposed to leave a few minutes, and I have a thing in my family. Some of you know me. I've worked with a lot of good people in here. There's an Ann rule in my family. Now, Ann is now Dr. Ann Elsener. She's a professor at Dominican University in Chicago, and she's my oldest daughter. And there's an Ann rule in our house. And let me tell you how I got it. Saturday morning, I finally get home relaxed. I remember laying in my bed distinctly, reading a book. You know, my wife, Beth, and I have 9 children and 13 grandchildren. Well, at the time, we just had 9 children. Beth, my wife, was out shopping. Ann's running through the house calling for mom. Mom, mom, mom. Now, as a parent, you just kind of hope if you lay low and don't say anything, they'll get on to something else and leave you alone. Well, it didn't work out that way. She would not quit. Finally, I said, Ann, I'm in here. She came in my room, arms full of books. Where's Mom? Mom's not here. She's at the store. I said, what do you need, Ann? I need some help with my homework. She was about 7th, 8th grade at the time. Well, I had been teacher of the year, principal, superintendent. I was secretary of education for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. 71 schools, 25,000 children, and now I get to help my own daughter. I said, Ann, I'll help you. She said, no thanks, I don't want to know that much. So we have the Ann rule. When I get to prattling on too long at the home, they institute the Ann rule. So just tell me when to quit. Archbishop, I'm a practitioner, and I've been involved. I began as a teacher. I was at the ripe old age of 29. I was a Catholic high school principal. Someone asked me from time to time, when did you start raising money? I'm a 29-year-old principal. I'm first day at my desk, and I was kind of thinking, I want something to do now. What do principals do? Sure enough, here comes a woman named Marcia Bartley knocking on the door. She was the bookkeeper. She said, Mr. Elsener. I said, good morning, Marcia. You can call me Dan. She called Dan. I thought I ought to come in here and tell you a few things about the finances. Okay, tell me some things about I was all excited. I had something to do now as principal. See, I was behind the desk. And she said, we have payroll in 6 days, and we don't have enough money. That was the day I started raising money for Catholic education. The 3 fellows on the board, I still remember them. Jack Caldwell, God bless his soul. I know he's up in heaven because he left $1 million to the high school. They called me when he did it, and I remember the conversation with him. What could he do that would make a difference? And that was it. And surprisingly, he listened. There was a guy named Frank Sabatini. He was a banker and a lawyer. And then there was a guy named Schwartz. He sold liquor. He had a lot of money. I said, listen, you fellas brought me here. We're about 30,000 short on the deal, so what do you say? Each give 10, and then we'll work on July next. And they all looked at me, and they shook their head yes. When they left, I said, I don't believe this. And that was back when $30,000 was a lot of money. And I said, that isn't so hard. I think I'll just do that, once a week or so. We'll get out of trouble. Sure enough, we did. I've also experienced a lot of the drift in our mission in various roles in a very practical way that I had to deal with. And it is in claiming your mission that you take care of these big issues in Catholic education. Archbishop is exactly right. You find it in Christ and in our faith and being distinctly Catholic. Matter of fact, I thought of a marketing campaign, in front of the schools. Smart, bright, brilliant, kind, polite saints making in progress, or something like that, so we could both promote the academic. And a lot of parents would probably pull in and check that kind of education out because they would like that for their children. So I also serve on the State Board of Education, and I spent so much of my life in Catholic education. I must tell you, very practically speaking, I've come to believe this, that outside of integrating the various subjects Archbishop talked about and the faith, can you really offer an excellent education? When you reduce children to one test score on one day throughout the year, is that education? I'm all for test scores. I'm all for accountability on tests. But it's become very clear to me as I try to serve the state, all the children in the state, we have a serious disadvantage. Outside of the Catholic school system, there's some other Christian schools in the country certainly, to look at the whole person is not only a privilege and opportunity, it's really essential if you were going to offer an outstanding education. As I mentioned before, I've also been, I guess, greatly blessed in my role as a father. And we've written a lot of checks. It used to be week and month to month, and now, you know, with the last one, our Luke, he's in 10th grade, excuse me, Luke. He's in 10th grade. That's a big difference. And we can write our tuition check, you know, in the summer for the whole year. It used to be every month an act of faith to pry open that checkbook and figure out how we're going to, all of them go through school, Catholic colleges, universities. You can imagine the investment we have made. But I can't think of anything that we've bought or invested in that's been more valuable for my family. Nothing like it. And I got to tell you, I was thinking, I give this talk, I better update it. I have been involved in campaigns, capital campaigns, annual campaigns, and I've been in a leadership role in campaigns in my young life, I'd like to think, well over $250 million of inviting people to give to Catholic education. And I can't think of a bigger favor I've done people in my whole life. That isn't the stewardship campaigns and all the other good things that I did with Dan Conway's and others. Very practical. I like the idea of a fundamental renewal. I like very much that proposal, really the thesis of the talk and all the material around it the Archbishop shared. This renewal, of course, concerns the nature, mission, academic quality. In the middle, Archbishop used the words rooted, talked about the engine of the school, talked about how to illumine all of education, and that is really at the heart of it. And I have used this for about 10 years to organize campaigns, mini campaigns, about any discussion of something we undertake at our institution, and I really did it before I got there. Always line out in the middle at the very heart of it. What is the mission? Where are the values? What are the goals? The foundation of what it is we're trying to undertake, points of pride, and attach everything to it. Everything. The strategy, who we pick out as leaders, internal and external, and involve people. I've always put this chart up, and really, in many ways, the Archbishop talked today talked about that. Get in the very heart of what you're doing, get it lined out very well, and move from there. I also agree with the Archbishop that fulfillment comes from a strong commitment to the liberal arts and sciences. So much of education's been narrowed, and it's certainly as strong in our case at the university level of theology. The vocation and gifts of stewardship, a calling and witness in opposition to a strong culture is powerful. Of course, the Eucharist and penance. I would also add, and the Archbishop alluded to this, one of the great things we have to offer, people learn more in community, where the social capital is strong. Especially, and if you remember James Coleman's research, the weaker background of the student, the stronger effect of the Catholic school. There is a commitment in love to people and community. It's one of the greatest examples the church have is we belong to each other. And it's not for a day or a week or a conference or a retreat. It's 180 some days, maybe even more in some states, where we together journey in knowledge and athletics and all the various subjects. Sometimes people would say back in the 60s and 70s when I would jump into the Catholic school we don't need these schools. We could have really good religious ed programs. Well, who's against a good religious ed program? But you can't live in community over a long period of time and see the faith in the athletics, in the play and in drama, in the music class, in the hallway. Why you challenge people on their manners and respect of the individual. It's not a subject or a session, it's a way of life. You can only do that in a Catholic enterprise, and that's true in higher ed. I particularly, the part I'm going to keep and use the Archbishop, is your presentation on the outlook, values, and approaches young people we send off to universities. It was just an excellent description. Father John and Melanie, you use some of that material. Now, I particularly like the MTDs. You know the MTDs? This is Christian Smith's moralistic therapeutic deism. You know, you kind of keep religion around in case you get in a pickle. And you say a little prayer. Of course, God loves you no matter what you do, right? And if you felt like it, that's a little bit of nihilism there. Well, I felt like it was okay, President Elsener, but I said, well, you got to form your feelings a little better. We call that a conscience. Okay? I feel like it's okay to be all night, male and females in rooms. I talk about near occasion of sin. Some of the students hadn't heard about it. I don't have to argue that point too much. They know how I feel. We made the decision. We don't do that kind of thing. But the MTDs, oh, you have the other. But I would also tell you this, and some of you are very involved in Catholic schools. I don't have all the research and data, but I have some good data points. We have 37 seminarians, 100 and some what we call San Damiano scholars at our campus that are integrating. They want to become theologically competent, and they are involved in service in the church, and they're going to serve the church. That's their goal. Young people with a strong background, many of them Catholic school backgrounds. You can almost pick them out, that are at daily Mass and weekend Mass and are serving at the campus level at Marian University. You get to talking to them, and I'll say, where did you go to high school? And it's a saint or a bishop something, almost invariably. The work is so very clear to me, the benefits and the fruit of our work in these K-12 schools. It screams at me every day to double down on the investment. I would also agree that in many ways, the threat of our children being subsumed in a Protestant culture was probably a more friendly environment in the 19th century to raise a Christian child than it is today, by far. By far. The need for Catholic schools is bigger. Let me add 5 things to the talk that I would really extend, and I think we need to work at this systemically. We do not have a human resource plan for our Catholic schools. I'm telling you, it's critical, dangerous, and derelict. If we want a fundamental renewal and avoid half measures, we are going to have to join together systemically and form and educate and invest in and encourage our future teachers and principals. I have never seen an excellent school, public, private, Catholic, or anything, without an excellent principal. It cannot happen. And we leave this to chance. I study the religious order that started our school 161 years ago. You know, one sister came in the wilderness of Indiana, and what did she start to do? She started to teach teachers. She saw the multiple. She had a strategic plan. I doubt it was ever written down. They started, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and they started institutes and orphanages and high schools, and they started a Catholic school in Kansas City, Missouri, because they wouldn't teach the black children. They had a mission. They invited people to the mission, and they demanded something of them, to be theologically competent, academically prepared, to know pedagogy, because they thought teaching and learning was transformational, not to be left to chance. Now we run scrambling around. We have this Catholic school, 300, 400, 500 children in it. We don't know where the next principal's coming from. What are we thinking? You have Catholic colleges and universities that should be participating in this, Catholic healthcare, Catholic social service, Catholic schools, And we're leaving all these pieces of this church ununified in a mission to prepare our human resource. That was really the birth of our San Damiano, we call it Rebuild My Church program. Seminary Circle, San Damiano Scholars preparing young people for lay work in the church, and then the total environment. The number of students in RCIA through these programs that are being drawn up by committed Christian people. Some of the San Damiano scholars end up in seminary, some of the seminarians end up in San Damiano scholars. Some of the students who just come to our campus suddenly become Catholics and end up in seminary. I mean, it goes all directions. But we've got to concentrate on the human resource. The young people just want to be invited, they want to be invested in, and they want to be challenged. If they want an easy ride, we don't make it easy. We do not make any of these programs easy. We will invest in you, but you have to be committed. Secondly, the financial resources. If we want to fundamentally renew, we've got to get serious. We need church-wide stewardship, living a life of stewardship. The good and gracious God has blessed us with enough money to run these schools. There's absolutely no question in my mind. I see it every day. It's there. We should never say again that we don't have enough money to educate our children. The fact is, it is not true. Our church is so much more wealthy than it was when we educated an immigrant church. Now we had free labor. It's different now, but it isn't impossible. It's not at all impossible, but we haven't on a consistent and thorough basis taught the idea of stewardship. Third, governance. The parish model has many, many benefits. I like the parish school where the neighborhood and the parish and the parents and the church are all tied together in mission. But the governance model, the shared responsibility over the finances and the direction and mission and strategy of these schools cannot be left to a pastor and a principal and a couple mothers that sell baked goods. It will not work. We're going to have to look at new models. And it's not either extreme of the continuum where Father does everything or get Father out of there and we'll give it to a few lay people. Neither works. It doesn't work on the diocesan level. It won't work on state levels. It will not work even in deaneries. We're going to have to work together. You need to draw excellent people with excellent backgrounds, with all the education we see in the lay people. And the laity, if they're called and challenged, changes them. I've watched people come to our board. We used to have a board. I remember my first year there, we used to almost be out of business, by the way, Marian University. In 2002, we had 1,000 students and our endowment was $2.9 million. Today, we have 2,500 and we have almost $50 million invested behind our institution. And we've built a bunch of stuff. And we have a bright future. If we wouldn't invite the laity and they'll be full partners in this, it would have never happened. Never. They own it. Now, some of their spouses complain that I get all their money. But I think that's good too. It's a blessing. It's a total blessing for their families. They've reordered their lives around something bigger than themselves. There's not enough stuff to buy. Okay? There's not enough stuff to buy. If you want a fundamental review of the Archbishop, it has to be excellent education. You know, I talked to some people after Vatican II in religious communities, and they tell me, we decided that we wanted to be with the poor. I just want to scream, for God's sakes, then teach. Teach! Where are you going to get to the very heart and mind and skills to lift someone out of poverty other than education in this modern culture? Teach! Don't be with people. I mean, have a popsicle with them, okay, but then teach. Do something to lift them up. And we have to have excellent schools. People say, well, are they only for Catholics? I say, no, our institution is not. I respect St. Francis Steubenville. It's a cool school. I've been there. I visited. I have friends that give to both of us. We're a distinctly Catholic institution. That was the engine that started our renewal and revival. We welcome everybody. It's interesting how many Jewish families, Protestant families invest in Marian University. They want excellent education. Our community knows we need it, and they know people need values and a commitment and understanding the human person. That's our business. Vision. To achieve this fundamental renewal, we're going to have to be bold and confident, and the vision has to be born in leadership. And I have a couple things. Passion to be the best. Somehow that circle and transport from Indianapolis over the airwaves. Passion to be the best, to serve a need in the world. Education, values, etc. And make sure we tie an economic engine to it. That's pretty much from good to great. Leadership. This is my favorite one. The art of getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. People don't even know they want to invest mightily in Catholic education until you help them understand why they want to do that. That's true with young people giving their life to teaching, whether it be religious orders. We've had the last 4 or 5 years at Marian a number of women go into religious orders. People tell me that's not possible anymore. You have to invite. People want to do great things, but you will have to invite them. I started this off with, we want a fundamental renewal. You can't do half measures. The Archbishop said it, I agree. If the roof leaks at your high school and your grade school and your church, you don't need a roof campaign. For God's sakes, relook at the whole thing. The roof didn't suddenly start leaking. You're not taking care of the place. You're not investing in your mission. You're not financing it right. You're not raising money right. You're not talking about stewardship right. You don't have the right deal. So if you just fix the roof, guess what? It'll be tuck point next year. Get a vision for your institution. Be bold about it. Prayerfully bold about it. By the way, we're Marian University, M-A-R-I-A-N, committed to the Blessed Mother. We live in Marion County, M-A-R-I-O-N. That's the seat of government. We're the seat of wisdom. We didn't have a beautiful shrine to the Blessed Mother. So we had people run around finding old statues. They were going to put it in the first week of March. We're going to dedicate a $300,000 shrine and rosary walk to the Blessed Mother on my campus at the highest point. Students and everybody gave. So we could have got the old statue of the Blessed Mother and put it at the corner of the tea garden, but you ought to see this thing. We have rosary beads in the walk. They're solar lights, so the blue lights. And I walked it the other night and said my rosary. By the way, one of the non-Catholic kids from Florida, I walk around campus in the evening and say a rosary. And he said, "Are you one of those fathers?" I said, "Yes." "I am," right? He wasn't the father he was thinking about, but I didn't want to. Don't bunt, aim it out of the ballpark. A ship in a harbor is safe, but it's not what ships are built for. I think many times we have kind of huddled and kept this mission private. We're just a little grade school in the neighborhood. Band together, make a bold claim, launch the ship. Don't protect one more from closing. That's not a vision. Launch this ship for renewal. It can change our culture. I love the word in here, commitment. The Archbishop talked about it, take a great commitment. And I'll leave you with this story, and then maybe we can do some questions and answers. I was a 29-year-old principal, and I had a coaching and teaching career. And then I was invited to be a principal, and I was all excited because I went to my first principals conference. Lo and behold, I get there. Who's the keynote speaker? Some little short guy, football coach, who spit all over himself named Lou Holtz. I thought, this is ridiculous. I came here at principals conference. He spoke about leadership, and he said something as a young principal I needed to hear. The one thing a great leader needs, and you're all leaders in this, is commitment. Not to fix the roof, not to pay Miss Jones $10 more a month. You need a commitment to do something great. And he said, most people don't understand that word. And Lou Holtz said, I'll tell you a story and I'll leave you with it. And I think I'll just copy him today. I feel called to tell the story. There's a young man in Chicago. He grows up in a home where his dad is a drinking, drugging, kind of irresponsible human being. When this kid's 6 years old, his dad gets shot out in the street because he was doing the wrong things. He was not much good for his family or anybody. His mother raised 5 children, worked day and night. She was a saint. She died when he was about 22, just from exhaustion, because she did the whole thing herself. He joined the army, and he's laying overseas in a God-forsaken place on Christmas Eve, and he's looking at a picture of his girlfriend. Now, he misses her. She's beautiful. 24-year-old kid, God-forsaken place, Christmas Eve. He sees his girlfriend. He said, I'm getting out of here. He puts his pants on, stuff on, starts walking out the gate, and the guard points a gun at him and said, "Halt!" He kept walking. He said, "Buddy," I said, "halt!" Pointed the gun right by his head. He said, "Look it, buddy. My mother's in heaven. My father's in hell. My girlfriend's in Chicago, and I will see one of them tonight." If we want to do this fundamental renewal that we're called to, we're going to have to be that kind of committed to stewardship, to vision, to the faith, to excellence in education, not patchwork. Build the human resource we'll need, come into the system and nurturing and pay them and take care of them. And our future isn't only nice and important, it's essential, and it'll transform our church, communities, and the world. Thanks for letting me share my thoughts.